3, 2, 1. MLS Aces Podcast. This is your host, Tom Sweezy. This is episode 289, and joined with me once again, Jason Viveng. Jason might sound a little different to you folks this week, but Jason,
hope so. Let's hope so. I'm good, man. I got a microphone. Shout out Ben from I forgot the network, the Soccer Goose.
Yes, the Goose man.
So thank you for that. For the listeners now, hopefully they hear me more clearly. Or I don't know, maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe they'll remember my takes more.
Exactly. Maybe it's worse quality now.
Maybe it's a better ear quality, but worse commentary.
Now you guys have to hear Jason. Ugh, like that's all.
Yeah, gross.
But last week was a little bit of a fun episode, I think, to catch up on the last few weeks the few weeks prior of us kind of missing out on some MLS news while we were away getting stuff done and whatever it may be. But now that we're back, we're going to kind of dive into more relative recent games and news and everything like that. And we'll kind of just roll straight into it for the most part, because there's a lot of different competitions going on. There's a lot of different types of games going on.
First think of it.
It's literally crazy that, I think I said it to you last week, like we're past the quarter mark of the MLS season, it's wild.
Unreal.
We're getting into the summer months, and we're soon going to hit, the All-Star game crap and all of that. And, I think all of the MLS teams are tweeting out today that it's 100 days until Leagues Cups begin, and we're getting into just thing. I know, woohoo, Leagues Cup, yeah, right. But we're getting into just, I think, like thing after thing, and it's the grind of the season, and it's always fun on our end. It's fun to watch soccer every single week, and the one thing that's never fun when we're talking about the grind is the grind of Champions Cup, Champions League, whatever it's been in the past or present day.
It can be fun, but this year it's been miserable.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's literally been one fun year. That's how I'll really lay it out. But
there's been years where the performances across the board haven't been
this bad.
Horrible.
Well, we
this
are
bad.
down.
Yeah, what you said, this bad.
This bad, right? We are down to 4 teams. On the one side of the bracket, you have Club America versus Pachuca. We're not really going to talk about that. Leg 1's at America. Leg 2 is at Pachuca. But we're really going to focus on the other side of the bracket, where we have the final MLS club remaining. The Columbus Crew are going to be taking on Monterrey. Leg 1 is at Columbus next week, and then leg 2 is going to be at Monterrey on May 1st. I almost said March 1st, May 1st. So Columbus, they are left after New England and Inter Miami crashed out of CCC in the quarterfinals. New England on that 9-2 aggregate loss, Miami on the 5-2 aggregate loss. So I guess, Jason, let's just start right now we can go with Columbus, we can go with New England, Miami. What's your focus on right now? We could maybe go positive and talk Columbus first if you want.
I mean, I don't really know if we need to say that much on the negative side for New England and Miami. Like, it was negative. 9-2 is egregious. Like, that's up there in some of like the worst 2-leg playoffs I've ever seen. That's just horrible.
It doesn't help that New England, I think New England we can easily move on with, of like they're arguably, if not the worst team in Major League Soccer this season. So
they're bad across the board, but like they should be this bad, and I think it's disappointing. And I feel like we've talked about how disappointing they've been.
Yeah,
Miami's just like. I guess I did start with the bad stuff, even though I literally started by saying
you don't want to start with it. Let's start with it.
Miami's it's also pretty bad, right? Like both legs did not go well.
You know what it is? It's not even that
still good though, right?
It's not even that the first leg was bad. Like a red card, and was it a dumb red card? Yes, but a 2-1 aggregate still like recoverable
without Messi too, which is
without
2-1 without Messi. I think we both felt pretty good about it.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I I was thinking, like, you have to go away to Mexico. Not many teams can do it, have done it. We literally had that conversation about Columbus last week. But there's a chance that with Messi, Miami was going to be able to do it. And I mean, I understand Messi's coming back from an injury. He did not play a great game down in Monterrey, and a 3-1 loss is bad. And Brandon Vasquez scoring again for Monterrey in CONCACAF Champions Cup. And I think even with a Miami, Messi, Suarez, Alba, Busquets squad, Liga MX still showed that they're gonna be the most consistent league in this competition.
Yeah, I don't really I need to add anything. That was well said.
I'm gonna now force you to talk positive. Columbus Crew, how are you feeling about them being the last MLS side, them moving on into the semifinals, facing Monterrey, all of that?
I feel like in this scenario, like Monterrey, as we just talked about versus Miami, like they didn't look unbeatable. And I think we saw a Columbus team who we have high expectations of, right? Like going into this season, after the season they had last year, after what Nancy's been able to do with this team, with the way they retooled over the offseason, they lost some guys, but they brought in some solid players. I think my expectation is this. Are they home in the first leg? I should have looked.
It's Columbus,
they're home,
and then Monterrey at home second leg.
They need like at least lead here, but like a 3-1 would be great, or a 2-0 or something. Like just immediately get off to a good start, because I feel like time and time again it's like, oh, a draw, and every time it's like, okay, I can talk myself into, okay, maybe they can get a result in Mexico, and it never happens. Although with this Columbus team, we did see them get a result in Mexico, and arguably one of the hardest teams to play against. So I think that like the confidence going into this is pretty high for backing Columbus. But again, like it's the same story we've seen a million times. Like, would I be surprised if this is a bad result and they go out? Honestly, yeah, but still, no, like both. Like, I'd be surprised in the sense that this Columbus team feels different, very different than some MLS clubs in this competition. But I wouldn't be surprised in the sense that this just seems to always happen. I do feel like the top team in MLS is usually like competing for the final of this tournament, though. Like, we've seen a lot of losses in the final, whereas like they are arguably the top team in MLS. It is arguable, but like kind of talent-wise, I would say. You don't think it's arguable?
No, clear? I think Columbus are clear and above the best team in Major League Soccer.
Okay, but yeah, that's fine. I mean, I would think you could argue like Miami with talent, but I don't think the on-field and stuff has really lived up. I mean, maybe in league it has, but yeah, whatever. I'm just rambling. I think Columbus is far and away like the team that I would probably have put my money on going into this tournament, saying what team in MLS will make it furthest. So we'll just see what happens. I mean, I think it's not going to be easy regardless.
Well, one, to be fair to that point, when we did our season predictions, we both picked the Columbus Crew to win CONCACAF Champions Cup. So we're still in it. That's
okay. Oh yeah, I mean, I forgot about that, but I'm happy about that.
I took a look at it yesterday, and for what I was just clicking around.
Oh yeah, I have it open right now. You had them winning the Supporters Shield. That's also potential.
But I think the main thing that when you talk about it, right, is like when you think about it, there's always like one team from Major League Soccer that you feel like at the end of the day could make a run, could win it if things go perfect, at least make a semifinal or a final. And yes, I think Columbus is that team, and obviously they are. But even with how strong Columbus has looked, even with, I think, the on the field that they've shown in Major League Soccer, in Leagues Cup, in CONCACAF Champions Cup, everything else, they are the only team to pick up a win against Liga MX's competition in this competition this year. Major League Soccer teams against Mexican sides have 1 win, 4 draws, and 9 losses this year.
That is the goal differential has to be horrible on that.
It's awful. I didn't even do that math, but The one win didn't come down in Mexico that we mentioned, Columbus getting a win against Tigres, but it did come in penalty kicks, right? So it's like, I'm not discrediting what Columbus did. What Columbus did is amazing, and I do think that they have a chance to ride this wave and ride the positive performances as long as, knock on wood, injuries are good, knock on wood, no cards, all that stuff, and that they could make a CONCACAF Champions Cup final and ultimately win the competition. But it's just different in the sense, and if you're new to following Champions Cup or Major League Soccer or whatever, it's different because we talk about one team from Major League Soccer every single year that can win it. Where you look at Liga MX every single year, you can talk about America, Monterrey, Cruz Azul, Pachuca, Tigres, Chivas, like Pumas.
I feel like this situation almost always happens where it's like one MLS team,
100%.
3 Liga MX teams in the semifinals.
And I think it's just what we always say, and I know we've texted about it, and it's how I feel. The top of Liga MX is still far and beyond better than the top of Major League Soccer. Now, I think the leagues overall, Major League Soccer probably has the quote-unquote advantage in that category because I think the bottom of MLS is better than the bottom of Liga MX, but I think just the sheer top class of those 4 or 5 clubs we talk about in Mexico are always going to be a tier above whatever team we're talking about as the top team in MLS that year that could win Champions Cup, right? So that's where I'm just like, I want to see Columbus do it. I will root for Columbus to do it. I think they can do it, but they're also going to need to put in perfect 4 more games at least. Well, not at least. It would be 4 more games if they win it. And they're also going to need some luck on their side. That is where I'm at with this Columbus team, pretty much.
Yeah, and I think they did win in penalties, but I do feel like we should say they were like the better team in a lot of that game. It wasn't like a lucky win. That was a hard battle between 2 very good teams. They ended up coming out on top, but I don't feel like it should be. It's not like almost as much of a negative as they squeaked by on penalties, because I don't feel like they squeaked by at all. I felt like, especially in extra time, they had probably 20 to 25 of the better minutes out of those 30. So yeah. I don't know. I think we're just going to have to see, I get optimistic, maybe too optimistic a lot of times in this competition for MLS teams. I mean, just go look at the last month of podcasts or whatever, and you could probably hear me saying oh, there's definitely a shot here. I mean, but I don't know. I have to be more cautious because this team is so good that I genuinely think if there was an MLS team, like you're saying, there's always just one that's a competitor, and they are the one. But you're still going to get a result in Mexico somewhere along these next month of games.
For sure. I mean, I'm not going to beat the dead horse. It's the same thing every single year. And, I'm sitting here in a Miami jersey, but I'm hoping Columbus can do it. And, at Miami, I know you said maybe not that disappointing. I'm disappointed. This team was put together to win every trophy competition that they were playing in. Correct me if I'm wrong about that.
No, you're right.
Their goal was to, and it was Tata said it, front office said it, Messi said it, everyone said it, that their goal was to win CONCACAF Champions Cup. And the way that they bounced out of CCC is embarrassing. So I think that Miami, it's not to say that they're going to have a bad season. I still would put my money that they win a trophy at some point this season. But it's for the top continental competition that you're going to play in, it is a little embarrassing how you went out on it on that 5-2 aggregate. But, I mean, look, you can look at New England, Orlando City, Vancouver, Philly. I would argue Cincinnati probably put up a decent fight, but of those other teams, they all kind of went out on an embarrassing fashion in this competition. So at the end of the day, I think Liga MX is still going to hold the top dog spot until we can see a 2022 Seattle Sounders replicated year after year. And I don't know when that's going to be, if that's going to be, obviously there's roster changes and rules going for Major League Soccer in this upcoming transfer window, and then probably moving into the future as well. But we'll see as that comes. Is there anything else? Yeah, go for it.
I think the more they push for this MLS Liga MX competition type of stuff with Leagues Cup, with obviously Champions Cup, you're gonna start to see MLS teams and rosters and rules and stuff get a little bit looser, I would think. Or, I mean, we're already seeing it, but you can't keep, like, as MLS as a league is pushing all this Leagues Cup and in all, this competition and in competition versus Liga MX, you can't keep pushing that and just getting destroyed in the competitions, right? And obviously Leagues Cup last year, that's not the case. But there's a couple of reasons for that, is that they're not really in their season and outside reasons. But
it's the same argument.
It's also MLS stops their season basically for Leagues Cup, which is a major like these guys are all in the thick of the season, and then suddenly it's like a pause for this, and it's a big competition. But I think my point is, the more they push that, I do think MLS is going to have to, and I think they are starting to realize, like, we can't keep pushing this and then getting wrecked, because it's not a good look for the league to be like, yeah, we want more competition with Liga MX and then constantly fail in those competitions.
Yeah. I mean, eventually this is all leading towards different roster rules and ways for MLS clubs to improve their rosters and compete, because at the end of the day, I don't know how many people have said it. I'm not trying to sit here to repeat everything else that other people have said, but Liga MX benches have more quote unquote DP level quality than some MLS rosters do. That's the difference. And just to kind of mention it, because we forgot to mention it last week, but Major League Soccer is set, and this is from Paul Tenorio of The Athletic and a few others over at The Athletic, but Major League Soccer is set to make some changes to their roster rules starting this upcoming summer window. So mid-season roster rule changes, I'm here for it. It's not the most exciting roster rule changes, but it is nice small steps that I think are probably the most realistic for a mid-season change. But it's going to be, clubs have the option of either 3 DPs and 3 U22 initiative spots, so not 2 and 3 or whatever. It's going to be 3 and 3. Or clubs can have 2 designated players, 4 U22 initiative players, or $2 million in general allocation money used. It's very complicated on that side. I think probably most clubs are going to go 3 and 3. I think that makes the most sense, but what do I know? The other point, the other points are 2 buyouts per season. So that is actually a sneaky, super nice rule that I like, because it really, the 1 buyout per season thing really doesn't allow for clubs to get out of shitty contracts that they're in if they, are in multiple of them. And then the third new rule is going to be a max $3 million in general allocation money on transfer revenue per year. So that, again, just more ways for Major League Soccer clubs to have more money, spend more money, use more money, accumulate more talent, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to dive too deep into that because I don't think anything's official yet. And, we'll probably dive.
It'll be easier to talk about when we actually have moves to talk about, play into this.
The summer transfer window will probably
it is interesting. They are like speeding that up if it does go through, obviously. And it is that summer transfer window. Like, that's mid-season. That'll be interesting to see how teams who are really good improve, because I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of contenders that are like looking at that going, there's a chance here to put us above, this team or whatever. So we'll probably see some interesting moves potentially.
Or literally, I think it's a sign that we're going to get bigger changes in the offseason. If I had to make any assumption of you're pushing roster rules for a summer transfer window, that doesn't seem typically too MLS-esque. But it does make it interesting, right? Like you said, like a good team, like if we're going to take what the Red Bulls are so far in 2024, the Red Bulls have 3 U22 initiative spots filled, and they have 2 DP spots filled currently. If this gets passed, this allows them to, if the Red Bulls want to go out and spend big money on a DP level striker, that allows a good team, I think, like where the Red Bulls are, and that would push them into MLS Cup contender category for me. They're not there yet.
Agreed,
I think they're just the tier below, but just an example of I think what these roster rules could really do for any of these clubs overall in Major League Soccer. But let's move forward. The CONCACAF Champions Cup isn't the only competition going on. We're going to move forward with a little bit of a U.S. Open Cup update, and I do feel bad because you and I were pushing how it's bullshit, Major League Soccer, all this stuff, and we really haven't touched it. To be fair, we have been away from a majority of the competition going on, so I'll be fair to us a little bit there. But I kind of just want to mention, one, we're going into, well, we're currently in this game. The first third round games of the competition started yesterday, but we are in the third round of the competition. USL Championship clubs are rolling into this round. I just want to ask you, because there's a lot of different storylines, moments, cool just stories in general that I think we should mention on the podcast. I'm just going to give you one, Jason, because then we'll dive into some MLS stuff. What's one storyline, moment, game, whatever you want to focus on with this Open Cup that stood out to you?
I mean, I think, like, I don't know. I don't know if you wanted me to touch on exactly one of these that you wrote down.
You could. I just put down points of reference.
I think the bigger thing as a whole is, like, when you look at this is, and obviously they can't see, the listeners can't see this, but like the reason for why this tournament is fun is because of like underdog stories, because of teams that are just getting built, or, you know, like Miami United FC. They're not a pro team. They're on their own payroll or whatever. They're defeating teams that are probably better, like MLS Next Pro side Chattanooga 1-0. Then they beat Club de Leon of Nissa, and now they're going to take on Memphis 901. Like that, the larger, the further these teams make it, and I think you have a bunch on here. I'm not going to mention them all, but I think for me, it's like the competition is at its best when you see smaller teams making runs, right? Like, I think in our preseason predictions, I had Louisville City winning the whole thing, I think, and you had Phoenix Rising, which isn't like crazy given the whole
state of the competition this year.
Currently now. But like, I'll always go back to it, and I've probably mentioned it 1,000 times. It's like when FC Cincinnati was in USL and they made that run, or when I think Sacramento made a run once. Like, those are what make the tournament special, and it's gonna happen every single year you have this tournament, because that's the nature of the sport. That's the nature of the game. That's why you play the games, right? And that's why it was. I don't want to make it as like a discussion on MLS again. Like, that's why it was annoying or painful that MLS kind of decided to make those decisions, because the very nature of the sport, like the reason you play the games is because the result isn't set and it's not guaranteed, and you get to see these teams that are maybe a smaller team upset other teams. And I don't know. I don't want to keep rambling, because I feel like I've already done that this episode in the past.
It's what generates interest and development both on and off the field in soccer, if you ask. And yes, I'm not going to dive into my moral stand of the U.S. Open Cup and all of that, but I think, right, like, so one cool story is the Des Moines Menace USL League 2, which is a non-professional league, but it's like a bunch of college kids that kind of play in a league during the summer when college isn't in. That's pretty much what USL League 2 is. The Des Moines Menace, they've won USL League 2 a bunch. They actually have a pretty deep history of soccer and trophies and everything like that. Their recruitment strategy for the 2024 US Open Cup was very interesting, and I love it. Former MLS players, Sasha Kleshchin, formerly of the Galaxy, Red Bulls, Anderlecht, goalkeeper Brian Rowe of Orlando City fame, AJ De La Garza, multiple MLS Cup champion with the LA Galaxy, Roger Espinoza, formerly of Sporting Kansas City, Tesho Akindele. They all decided to play for Des Moines Menace. And I love it because, I mean, I would assume that all of these guys probably share a similar sentiment to yourself and myself of this is an important competition and we're going to kind of create some headlines. And I mean, look, Sasha Kleshchin works for Apple TV of, MLS, the MLS deal on Apple TV. I would safely say someone above probably didn't like that he was in
competing in the
a competition in which the league isn't really placing importance on. I'm just going to safely throw it out there. I don't know anything, but look, this non-pro side was able to defeat a Nisa side, whether you want to consider Nisa pro or not, they are. On PK, Sasha had an assist in that game, and I think he put home the winning PK as well. They did go on to lose to a USL League One side in Union Omaha, but at the end of the day, kind of like what you said, Jason, it's just a fun story. It's a great story. It's a story that generates interest in the game. And you know, how many times do we see overseas like older players or not even former players, right? Like we have here, but maybe older players who are playing at a little bit of a lower level being like, oh crap, I didn't know they're still playing, and they're playing, for a 3 Bundesliga side, and look at the run they're having in the DFB Pokal and stuff like that, right? Like, it's just fun storylines that just generates, I think, interest on and off the field for sure.
It definitely generates interest. Like, you wouldn't. Honestly, even for me, someone who watches too much soccer, pays too much attention, like there are teams that I'll hear for the first time because of this competition. And I'm like, wow, they're going far in this. Like, they're about to go play, I don't know, Orlando City next week or something. Like, it makes it so interesting. It's like you don't get all of that. You don't get that interest if these teams aren't competing in making runs, and suddenly, everyone in American soccer is going, wow, like, how are they beating these teams, or how is this happening? This is awesome.
Or
so
even,
I don't know. I think it's cool, but
I'm going to quickly run through these because I think they're important to say. To that point, even if, right, you're living in a state that may not have the deepest soccer history, let's just throw out Vermont, right? Vermont, not the deepest soccer history, and recently they have their own USL League 2. I think this is their first year of existence. Squad Vermont Green FC. Very, I think, like, they do a lot of fun stuff. The uniforms are cool. The logo was cool when it dropped, and Twitter and social media was freaking out. They hosted the first ever U.S. Open Cup game in the state of Vermont when they upset and defeated a professional side, USL League One side, Lexington SC. They did go on, I think, very recently in round, that was a mistake, in round 2 to lose to Carolina Core FC of MLS Next Pro. But it's just, these are the moments, these are the storylines that maybe some kid in Vermont gets to go out to this game, and it's a special moment, and everyone's freaking out and chugging beers, and it's just a cool moment that this non-pro team just defeated a pro team, and maybe that kid has an interest in soccer at that point, or that family has an interest, and they start to go out and to a Vermont Green FC game every single week, and it's just fun stuff like that. Or El Farolito FC, their magical run in the, as another non-professional club, they beat the Portland Timbers 2 of MLS Next Pro, then they beat Central Valley Fuego FC, managed by Jermaine Jones, by the way, USL League One. They did go out yesterday, unfortunately, and lose to the Oakland Roots of the USL Championship. It was a 2-1 loss in extra time, so shout out to you guys. But it's just a cool story, right? The club was founded in 1985, named after the owner's chain of, I think, taqueria restaurants up in Northern California, the Bay Area. They did previously win the U.S. Open Cup back in 1993.
That's cool
history. You wouldn't have known this stuff if the story of
U.S. soccer lore,
you just wouldn't have known it. And it's just what makes the Open Cup special. And yes, I don't think a non-professional team is winning the U.S. Open Cup in the modern leagues and day that we have of U.S. soccer. But it's just cool stuff. So that's just the type of, I think, publicity that the Open Cup deserves.
Well, like, imagine a team like that, right? El Farolito. Let's say they beat Oakland Roots, right? And let's say, the Portland Timbers are waiting for them. They go to Portland and they play in that stadium. Like, that is
exactly.
I mean, I don't know when the MLS teams would have actually joined, but my point is, like, the potential for that to happen is insane, and it literally builds such a history. Everyone learns about that team. Everyone learns that, they won back in 1993. I didn't know that,
yeah.
Those are the stories that you build those lower leagues. You build U.S. soccer culture as a whole. You build these stories of, like, remember when that team, that little team, that was, named after restaurants, like, made that amazing run and beat an MLS side or competed and had a great game. Like, it doesn't really, when we looked at it, it was like, oh, this is a money move. They just want their League Cup and stuff and promote their tournaments that they can control, blah, blah, blah. The point is, like, you're ruining, like, the potential for some major growth in U.S. soccer as a whole. And I know we just went down the same rabbit hole we already did, but I can't really not do that with talking about this.
It's just true because it's just cool stuff that might be local to someone, might be more national, whatever it may be. But like these are just the things that make soccer in America special, and it's what makes soccer to American fans, whether you're a USL fan, an MLS fan, NISA, whatever, just makes it special to you. And these are the types of things that should be covered about and talked about on a national basis, because it's also something you don't get with any other sport. Like your local friends throwing it together a basketball team, and you're not going out and facing the New York Knicks the next
well, you week. Just have there's zero potential. You're not creating a team of past college players. Like that's why people like March Madness, right? To compare it to something sort of comparable. When you see like a tiny team that nobody's ever heard of in March Madness and they go and beat Duke, it's a huge deal. And the fact that it's even, and that's the same type of league, but if you take imagine if a D3 school or something went on a run and then beat Duke, the things that are the potential for that are just huge. It changes the way people view that little club. It changes the way people view that league that they're in. It changes the way the course of their history, right? Like the money that they're able to bring in. I think in England, it's really obvious when, you have Liverpool playing Woking or something. Like it's major because it is that jump in that revenue that team then gets and reinvest into their team, and it makes a difference.
No, I mean, for sure. And shout out to, you're speaking of NCAA run, St. Peter's here. And I'm in Jersey. St. Peter's is a college here in Jersey. And if you guys don't know, a few years ago, maybe 2 years ago.
I think everyone knows who St. Peter's is now.
I mean, the Peacocks, you got to let them fly. And they flew. And that college was a little bit of a mess with kids and having a ton of fun. And they deserve to have that fun with the team. Let's move away from the Open Cup. Let's go into some MLS action and storylines. And I think the first piece to talk about, and we may not dive into it too much because we've already talked a lot of Columbus Crew on this podcast, but the Columbus Crew did announce today, the 17th, that they are extending the contract for their manager, Wilfried Nancy, which is an absolute unbelievable move. I think I've seen some people online talk about how it's better than any type of on the field signing that they can grab. I don't know if it's that level. I mean, if Vinicius wants to come sign for the Columbus Crew, I think that would probably be a better move than Wilfried Nancy. But I understand
maybe then they were referring to that. They were talking about realistic moves.
I understand the sentiment, and I think I agree that Wilfried Nancy, if you can keep him around in the long term, right, and you're not running the risk of him running out his contract and going to a European club, which I think the man deserves at some point in his career. I think keeping him around and building the winning culture of what the Columbus Crew have been and what the Columbus Crew are under Wilfried Nancy, it's unbelievable, and it's kudos to that man.
Are you surprised at all by it? Like, in some ways, I kind of penciled in my mind, okay, Nancy's not here for he still might not be. I don't know what the extension was, but it's not. I kind of penciled in my mind, okay, he's gonna leave us. He's gonna go on. He's gonna be a manager in a top 5 league somewhere in the world. He has the talent.
Seriously thinking a League One club, like a French League One club, is coming to pick up Wilfried. He's a former French professional soccer player who built up his coaching in America. And you've seen a Patrick Vieira go over to Ligue 1 after, a successful MLS run. It wouldn't surprise me if a Ligue 1 club was we want to hire Wilfried Nancy. It just makes sense. But I am shocked by this.
I think it's great, though. I think maybe he just loves Columbus, right? Maybe he realizes that they have something that they're building there that he's really into, and I hope that's the case, because it seems like that's the case. But yeah, maybe this is just maybe they are going to start getting some Viniciuses. Erling Haaland's going to come over.
He's on his way. I mean, he just scored a banger in UEFA Champions
Do you have
League.
that on?
But,
I don't even have it on.
yeah, I have it on the background right now. It's 1-1 Madrid City.
And Bayern's up on Arsenal.
Are they?
Yeah, it's 1-0. We're in the 84th minute. Josh Kimmich.
Sorry, Arsenal fans. I know there's a lot of them in America.
I don't feel bad for you.
But no, in talking about this, yes, I was honestly surprised when I saw this get dropped today, because I'm like, the man has to have some offers overseas. Maybe he wants to stick around, to your point. And in all of the releases of this news, I have not seen when his contract is extended until. Classic MLS not giving information. Love it. But it's fine. He's around for relatively probably the next 3-4 years, and we'll see.
Speculation. They only extended it by like 2 months.
Oh yeah, exactly. Right, end of the season. I definitely think Nancy is going to have.
Technically, like, you can transfer a manager, right? Like, does that work?
Yeah, Wilfred Nancy, we got transferred from Montreal to Columbus.
Right? But can you do it like to Spain or something?
Yeah, can I sell his contract to Le Havre or
like
whatever?
What are the rules on MLS on that one? Dig up that book.
Exactly, right. I mean, who has the discovery rights on Wilfred Nancy? And I don't know, but
I would be so curious. I wonder if they have anything written in their like rules about that.
Tom Bogert, you're not watching this or listening to this, but I'm looking at you. I'll probably annoy you with the DM later, but I would be interested to see. Yeah, I want to know. But yeah, well, congratulations to him on all of his success. And again, I said it last week, if the Columbus Crew can go on and win CONCACAF Champions Cup, this 2022, Crew 2 class is absolutely just goated, because they've won everything possible. But
they could still win, they're still up there with the league.
Yeah, they could win Supporters Shield. Go take it. They could
win the MLS Cup again. Sky's the limit for these guys.
I mean, literally, honestly. All right, let's move forward. I don't know, Jason. I'm gonna let you go. What game storyline do you want to talk about here?
Let's talk about the Galaxy, because I feel like the Galaxy are one of those teams that for a long time we're like top of the line, top of the league, obviously, for years and years, Beckham, whatever. And we had that like phase, for a while, especially, honestly, it feels like most of the years I've been on this podcast, they've been pretty bad. And here they are, currently top of the league. They just went on and beat the Whitecaps, who were top of the league prior to that game. They are kind of clicking here, right? Like, Paintsel looks amazing. I know you probably want to talk about him, but I feel like Ricky. What were you saying?
Paintsel's my guy.
Yeah, he's been awesome. I think we talked about him last week too.
Yeah.
But I feel like it almost is overlooked how this team has just been slowly building, right? Like, wasn't it just last year we had like the info that Greg Vanney like had the team, but the front office was, I don't know, there was like some internal stuff going on.
Yeah, I mean, when you literally had your supporter sections boycotting games because they didn't agree with the front office operating, I mean, not great a year ago.
Not a good look. But look where they are now. Like Gabriel Peck, I talked about him last week. I feel like he's continued to make his impact. Joveljic still, he's been a pretty good striker for them. Paintsel, obviously, like, I should have pulled up his stats before this, but I feel like he's been cooking.
I guess. Don't worry. You keep cooking.
But all of this falls on one guy, right? And that's Puig. And I think Ricky Puig has been incredible. I think going into the season, we talked about him a lot. We've seen that he has the talent, right? We've seen his ability to create, his ability to get others involved. But the others that were being involved haven't always lived up to the expectations. And now it feels like Greg Vanney has got this team and gotten them to a place where Ricky Puig has still gone on and been his creative self, been his opening doors for other players, right? It's a game of windows and doors, as you used to say. And And he's starting to thrive, man. I don't know if it necessarily jumps out in the stat sheets, but I do think like watching these games, he's sort of like the puppet master, and the team is just clicking on all cylinders. And like, not to take a ton away from Vancouver, because I still think they're good. I still think they're a solid team, right? Like they're still second. A 3-1 win over Vancouver on
Vancouver.
the road. Yeah, on the road is massive. And it's one of those things that in past seasons, it would have just been written in as a loss for the Galaxy. And I wouldn't have even blinked, like it probably would have been a 3-1 the other way. And it would have been a bad performance. And this team just seems to, at least at the start of the season, a quarter of the way in, a little bit more, like they are clicking. And honestly, they're pretty scary going forward this year.
No, I mean, I think at this point, obviously, right? You can look at the standings. I'm not talking strictly standings. I think the Galaxy are the best team in the Western Conference. They've proven to be the most consistent team to start the MLS season out in the Western Conference. I think there's an argument for them to be the best in the league. Yeah, never mind. That's not true.
No, I think we literally just said that the Columbus Crew are head and shoulders.
Defensively, I do have my concerns still about the Galaxy, so I'm not gonna sit here and try to act
I think you could say that about another team that also might be the top of the conference standings on the East.
Yeah, I mean, we can get into
MLS
Miami.
Teams not caring about getting solid defenders is crazy to me. Like, there's a couple teams that do it and do it well, and then you see that year and year and year and year. But there's a couple that just don't seem to care, and they're like, we'll just outscore the others.
I think, though, to your point of Greg Vanney and maybe the way this Galaxy team has been built differently than in the last, I don't know, feels like a decade almost.
When you just went big name.
Exactly. Like, you got actual talented players to fill DP spots. Ricky Push is one of the best midfielders, attacking players in the game. Joseph Ponce.
He's arguably like top 3 currently, including Messi in the conversation.
He's an MVP-esque player on this team. Ponceal has been great, and he's adjusted to the league great. I think Gabriel Peck, his stats haven't popped up on the score sheet, and I have some stats here to read off, but I think you see the talent level of the man. Joveljic, I had some concerns after last year, him kind of falling to the background, I think, especially with not really stepping up with that long-term injury to Chicharito. And Joveljic has now, he's tied for the Golden Boot lead with 6 goals in the league. Ponceal has 3 goals, 3 assists. Push has 2 goals, 4 assists. Even Marky Delgado's getting in on it, a goal and 4 assists. Like, at the end of the day, this Galaxy team is scoring at high levels, and I think they have a lot of
second most goals scored in the league.
A lot of dangerous attacking pieces, right? I think their downfall, if it's going to be anything, is defensively. And I know I put this question here in the sheet. I don't know if I believe my own question, but is Joseph Ponceal an MVP level candidate? To your point, I think if anyone's an MVP on this Galaxy team, I think it's Ricky Push. But I think Ponceal, if he keeps it up, should be in the conversation.
I think, yeah, maybe this team just cruises to like a record points total and stuff and is killing it. But if you're going to have an MVP candidate from the Galaxy and it's not Ricky Puig, then that player has to be, like 40 goals and assists or something. Like, it's got to be crazy, because I feel like no matter what, if something good happens on this Galaxy team, there's somehow that Ricky Puig is attached to it, right? Like, there's some way that he created that space or did something. And I feel like and I don't mean to like write off other players, right? Like, obviously they're having great seasons, but I just think that when it comes down to it, this team is operated by Puig in the center.
Fair enough.
And I think if you're going, unless you have multiple MVP candidates from the same team, which is possible, it's just they have to have an incredible season in that case.
Look, you can look at Inter Miami for that category there, but I agree. I think LA, the Galaxy, have been a fun team to talk about because it's, like, they still have the history. They're still the Galaxy. And I think, you want to, not maybe you and maybe a bunch of fans don't actually want to see it, but I think for the general, you should want to see the LA Galaxy playing at the top of their game.
The LA Galaxy being good is fun for the league. And I don't care if you hate the LA Galaxy deep down, that it's fun when the LA Galaxy are good. It just feels different.
Yes, I can agree with that. And I'm going to transition to a team that a lot of other people hate as well. And we talked about them a little bit. I'm repping them right here is Inter Miami. After, their CONCACAF Champions Cup loss that we've talked about, they did bounce back. They did pick up a road win for themselves, 3-2 over Sporting Kansas City. Lionel Messi bouncing back into MLS action like he has, and he has a goal and assist in this one. The goal was scored by Diego Gomez, who did have his own assist later on in the game as well. Messi had a fucking goalazo for the second goal of the game. Suarez with the game winner. I mean, this was classic, I think, what you can expect of Inter Miami in MLS play specifically. I think, Leagues Cup, CONCACAF Champions Cup, obviously are going to be a little different. But I think in MLS play, whether they're on the road or at home, if Messi's playing, if Suarez is playing, this is what you should expect, and you're going to get Messi magic every single week. Patrick Mahomes is in the house, and he got to see the best footballer on the planet, and that's pretty much it. I don't know, it's almost boring to talk about to an extent because it's like, Messi hit a wonder goal, Suarez scored, Diego Gomez was a ball of energy and got in the box sheet. David Ruiz was very good in this game too. It's almost boring to just be like, at Miami,
I will say you could almost make the same comment made about the Galaxy in that the defense is so leaky in this team. They have 14 goals against, which is on par with no playoff teams in the league, except for arguably the LA Galaxy, right, with 12 goals against. But obviously the 19 goals for it. They are a powerhouse in attack. How do you stop Suarez, Messi?
All about the attack. That's it. Goals. That's it.
And it almost doesn't matter, and it might not matter, right? They might break a record for goals allowed and goals scored.
Yes, literally. I mean, look, you have Messi, who I think he's tied with Chicho Arango for most goal contributions this season, tied for 10. Messi has 5 goals and 5 assists.
For that.
It's 5 goals and 5 assists in 5 league games played for Messi. You're averaging 2 goal contributions a game, and that's just fucking ridiculous. Suarez has 6 goals, 3 assists. Diego Gomez has 2 goals, 5 assists. The amount of goals that this team is scoring is ridiculous, that you can talk about the top goal scorers, the top assist leaders in Major League Soccer, the top goal contributors just in general, right? Goals plus assists. You can talk about all these stats, and Miami has 2 to 3 guys in the top 3 of each of these categories.
Who did you pick for
what?
The Golden Boot? Oh, you picked Diego Rossi. Yeah.
That was
I'm
not
still
a good
feeling good about my choice, honestly. I guess my question is, I picked Giacomakis, who has 5 goals and 4 starts because he's played a lot less games than everyone else. But do you think, would you take the Golden Boot from this team or any of the other, first of the field?
Ooh, am I picking a Golden Boot winner from Miami? Not a specific player on Miami, just
No, you don't have to pick a specific. Is it going to come from Miami or any of the other teams?
Damn, that's a good question.
Right? That should be a bet, honestly.
I mean, just with the fact that Miami has 2 of the top 6-7 goal scorers in the league, I'm gonna go Miami just with the faith of Suarez or Messi. But there's a lot of dudes scoring a lot of goals this season.
I mean, there's what do you 5 out of 6 goals. I think I personally would do the field because I actually do think if Giacomakis can stay healthy, they're just gonna keep. The thing is about him is he's just going to score. He's going to score every time. But
my concern is more Chicho Arango just kind of continues down this path he's been on.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think you could go Jovic also. What we just talked about with the Galaxy is he's going to be there in the number 9 probably the whole season. He's already has 6 goals. There's a lot. Lewis Morgan, I think, will probably slow down.
I think he'll fade off for sure.
Teke, I mean, even on an okay DC team, like goals are gonna have to come from somewhere, and it's not. I'm like, unless they score no goals, like there's a chance there.
No, I agree. And Jason, just to give you an update, Arsenal is eliminated from Champions League play.
I did just see that because Fallout was taking like a year to load, and it just loaded that. So yeah, Arsenal's done, but it looks like City and
Madrid are going extra time.
Yeah, extra. So,
all right,
for the listeners, now you know when we're recording.
For the listeners that are already going to know the results like a day or two at that point. Let's move forward, and I think those are like the main points I wanted to hit, but I did want to get to this Philadelphia Union game. And
I was about to say we need to do that one at least.
I have to talk about it. So the Philadelphia Union, they did remain undefeated in MLS play with a 2-2 comeback on the road. It was a draw against Atlanta. Great comeback. I think Mikel Ure was great. This team showed a lot of fight, and they got the job, for the most part, done. There was a goal called back late for being offsides, and it was, I don't know if you've seen the still frames. Obviously, again, we can talk about this the same way we talked about missed goals in the playoffs last year or anything before that of, we don't have the best shot. It was called a non-goal in the game, so it's tough to overturn that, blah, blah, blah. All the same shit. I think Mikel Ure was onside. I think that should have been a 3-2 comeback win for Philly. Before we get into Jim Curtin's quote, do you want to say anything about the goal? Or non-goal?
You mean the non-goal?
The non-goal, sorry.
Yeah, I agree. Like, it's so close. I really love the quote, so I kind of want you to just go into that. But
let's do it.
This was a good game, honestly. Atlanta was missing some key guys here, including Giacomakis. But yeah, go ahead.
So Union fans were not happy that they're not happy, are not happy, all of that. And Jim Curtin, he's pretty good for like a quote at some point during a season, and this might be the quote of the season so far. But he said, because the goal was not clear and obvious, right? That's the rules and the wording that the refs are going to use.
Because it was on the field, it was offsides. And so that wasn't clear and obvious. They use that in any sport, right?
Exactly. So that's the wording the refs are going to use and say on the broadcast and all of that. So Jim Curtin said, what does clear and obvious even mean? What's clear and obvious to me might not be to the next human. Millions of people watch 2.5 Men, and I think it's the dumbest show ever. It's clear and obvious to me that it's terrible. First of all, shots at 2.5 Men for like a decade being off the air at this point or something like
absolute straight. This guy hasn't turned on his TV in a year.
Literally, that was the last time. That was the last time Jim Curtin wasn't the head coach of the Philadelphia Union, was when Charlie Sheen was running around with tiger blood in 2.5 Men. But it's just, I don't think 2.5 Men deserve that. I like the show personally, but
personally, I don't have any takes on the show. I haven't really watched it. Every time I've seen clips from it, I'm like, I don't know if I would like this show, but it's an all-time quote.
It's a fantastic quote. Just pulling in 2.5 Men into a VAR.
Also, he makes a really good point.
No, 100%.
Whether you like 2.5 Men or not is the whole point. Like, the whole point he's trying to make is what actually does clear and obvious mean, right? If it's clear and obvious to one person that it's onside and not to the other, like. He makes a great point and such a funny quote.
It's I'm going to leave it at that. You are right. Whether you like it or not, it's Jim Curtin's quote is not wrong. The only other thing that I just wanted to mention on this episode, and we can wrap things up and you can say anything you want to mention as well, is just shout out to Ethan Bartlow, center back for the Houston Dynamo, who had an unbelievable goal line clearance in their 2-1 win against Minnesota United this past weekend. If you haven't seen it, go to Twitter, go to Instagram, whatever, and just search Ethan Bartlow. It's gonna come up as like one of the top hits. An unbelievable defensive play, and just shout out to a young center back in Bartlow who I think was a little bit slow in his development, but young center backs do that. And he's now turned into a pretty regular rotating center back piece for Olsen and a very good Houston Dynamo squad.
Yeah. I would say I kind of was like, what's going on in Houston? And in 1 week, I have completely changed my opinion. They're doing great.
Very good now. Very, very good. Is there anything else that you want to say about the state of MLS or anything within it before we wrap things up? You don't have
I feel
to.
like this. No, I was gonna just go back to that conversation about like Golden Boot leaders and assists and stuff.
Yeah.
The league feels like it's in a crazy spot right now with offensive firepower in general. So I don't know. I think it's fun. I think it's fun for the league to have a competition of scorers that are at such a high level that we have literally 5 people on 6 goals through 8 games played for some of them. That's pretty impressive. That's pretty much all I have to say.
You have what, 5 people on 6 goals, and then there's
a couple on 5.
Yeah, you have a couple on 5. You have a ton on 4. I mean, like, again, through 8 games, that's not bad if you're scoring a goal every other game, but you have the list of players. And then
another way to look at it is what is going on with MLS defenses?
Yeah, God damn, the defense in Major League Soccer sucks. I mean, yes, you can. It's all about how you really want to spin the story of it all. But I mean, even to that extent, like, you have some very good defensive teams this season. It's just you have some god awful defensive teams in Major League Soccer this season as well. I mean,
San Jose already has 20 goals conceded or something.
San Jose is on track to blow out FC Cincinnati's like a goals allowed in a season record in Major League Soccer play. Like 20 goals allowed in fucking, what is that, 8 games? That's all disgusting.
2 point something, 2.3. I don't know, math. 2.5.
It's just disgusting, whatever it is. But then look, you still have the teams like
need
Seattle.
Vipers to go play them.
You have Seattle, you have the Red Bulls, Columbus, even Cincinnati, all playing very good defense. Houston, all playing good defensive soccer. So I think there's a lot of bad defensive teams, but I still think there's still quite a bit of very good defensive teams. It's just yeah.
The last thing I was going to say, I don't know if you're done with your thought.
Yeah, I was just rambling at that point. Yes.
But now that we're at the end and we're basically just talking about whatever we want, Fire going a man up for like 60 minutes in Harrison, New Jersey, and getting literally nothing interesting to happen. After we just spent a long ass time talking about how Klopas is disappointing, including the fact that we didn't even technically, he wasn't eligible for the category we were talking about it on. Disappointing.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to say it that you guys couldn't even those are the opportunities to jump
they
on.
Had better chances, dude.
I'm just it's not good, you know. That is maybe the ugliest result of the weekend, that you guys couldn't pick up anything out of that. I mean,
it was brutal.
At least for NYCFC, you know, Augustine Ojeda got his first goal for the club. That's fun. Julian Fernandez, he got involved as well. It was against the worst team in the league, but I'll take it. I'm going to take points. Okay.
It's so funny looking at your like goal differential compared to everyone around the same area on the standings. It's just like, what is going on over here? There's like no goals scored, but there's also really not that many conceded. So, you know, there's hope there. If you guys just get players to start finishing their shots, not negative 6 goal differential.
I'm going to make this very declarative statement to end the episode. Matt Freese might be the best goalkeeper in MLS so far this season, and Kevin O'Toole might be the best left back in MLS so far this season. That's what I'm going to leave my final.
That's why you guys are doing so well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Best left back, best goalkeeper.
It's really not on them at all. You're kind of right. But
Monsef Bakar still hasn't scored a goal. I'm going to make sure I keep everyone updated with the Bakar.
I think we should keep everyone updated with his XG minus goals or whatever. Or goals minus XG. I don't know. Whatever the way it's supposed to go.
It's still the worst in the league. That hasn't
changed.
It's
got to have gotten worse if he hasn't scored. I mean, he had to have at least 0.2 XG in that game. Probably.
Unless he didn't have any XG at all. then it couldn't have gotten worse. It might have gotten better at the end of the day, really.
Honestly, if he had 0 XG, that's actually pretty good for him.
I mean, I'll take it. I'll take it at this point.
He needs to get that 0 XG goal and then just somehow offset everything, which is
right.
That's
a major bump to the XG minus goals scored. All right, I'm leaving it at that. Once a Picard, get better. Jason, you did great today. You don't need to get better. Listeners, if you like this episode, rate, like, and subscribe. I've never said that before, but there we go. That's it. End of the episode.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.